LGBT youth are the most likely to end their own lives demographic in America. They're kids, they were born a certain way, and because of a variety of factors that are out of their control, we have an undeniably massive statistical likelihood that those children will either be depressed or just as likely, might even attempt suicide in their lives to try and escape the pain that they feel. And so, with that in mind, you might think it's important that we try to facilitate a lot of resources for young LGBT people to seek out if they aren't feeling mentally strong, if they need some support, something to help pick them up. You know, we don't want children feeling depressed, much less literally ending their own lives, right? We don't want this. And so, when we find out that Donald Trump and his administration are moving to start shutting down LGBT anti-suicide hotlines, that really raised some alarms for me. How many of you guys are familiar with this story? I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it. Just one person recommended this story in my Discord, which surprised me. But I was aware of this headline before it was recommended, and when I saw it, I knew I had to talk about it. This is one of the most blatant shows of what the goals of the Republicans are. They want to make trans and gay people from childhood to adulthood till the ends of their lives feel unsafe, unsupported, unwelcomed, and most importantly, invalid. Republicans and conservatives, homophobes and transphobes get off harder on the idea of gay and trans people feeling unwanted and unaccepted by society at large more than anything in the world. Conservatives are desperate to make being gay or trans broadly unpopular, broadly unacceptable. And we are in an unfortunately adjacent position right now as a country to that. Gay people have pretty broad support, not everywhere, and locally in certain areas it's really bad, but nationally, support for gay people existing and getting married is fairly set in stone. I shouldn't say set in stone, it's pretty secured, I should say. When it comes to trans people, though, people who are part of LGBT groups that are not necessarily as known of, like aromantic and ace people, as well as gender fluid people, etc., these groups are nowhere near as broadly accepted as just gay and lesbian and bisexual people. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in that department. And because of that, the majority of LGBT youth have, at most, one person in their lives that is supportive of their identity. Having just one person in your life that is supportive of your identity as a trans person has statistically been demonstrated to reduce the chances of suicide being attempted at all by I think it's a 12 times reduction in the chances of suicide. It's that crazy. Now, the majority of LGBT youth do have at least one person who supports them, and that's why it's only 41% only that attempt suicide or are thinking about attempting suicide. And so with that in mind, we don't want to be taking down hotlines that are meant to help these youth. This is a pro-child death policy that Trump is pursuing here, and I don't want there to be any mistake. That is what this is. This is a pro-child death policy, just like Trump shutting down the CDC sector that focuses on drowning situations and stats around drowning and informs the Red Cross on how to train lifeguards and stuff. Trump shutting down that division is also pro-child death, but in that case it's drowning instead of suicide. This is an evil administration. This is just another one of those stories where all I can really say is, this is an evil administration. Let's find out just how evil.
The Trump administration will end specialized support on the 988 National Suicide Hotline for young LGBTQ plus callers, a group that has disproportionately high suicide rates. The administration announced the change by saying the hotline will no longer silo LGB plus youth services, omitting the T for transgender, and focus
Of
on
course they
serving
omit the
all
T.
help seekers. Lindsay Dawson is director of LGBTQ health at KFF. Lindsay, how long has this been an option on the suicide hotline, and how did it come about?
So this became an option early on when Congress started 988. They included directions to have a report to study how to best serve LGBTQ people who do face disparate mental health challenges, including higher rates of suicidality. They first piloted the line in 2022, and then in July 2023 launched the service nationwide.
And what's the argument for having these specialized services?
The argument
Maybe the fact that 41% of LGBT youth either attempt or think about attempting suicide. That's why. Children dying is bad. I know this is just a question being asked because you're meant to ask that question and then get that response out, but it's just to be very clear here, the fact that most Americans do not recognize this is the fundamental flaw in the left's messaging. If we're going to be messaging about trans rights to people, we need to talk about stats like trans and gay people as kids are extremely likely to commit suicide, and all the data represents the fact that it is because of a lack of support for their identity, and that we see a nearly, I think the stats demonstrate a 12, or it might be even higher, at 14 times reduction in the chances of suicidality when you just have one family member or friend that supports your identity. The data is pretty solid in this respect. We don't want kids to die. I feel like that's pretty straightforward, but the Republicans do.
The argument for this service is that because of the higher rates of suicidality and mental health challenges more generally, due to experiences like stigma and discrimination, higher rates of violence and loneliness, that LGBTQ youth and young adults could benefit from a service that specifically meets their needs and challenges.
How many users do we know?
So since the line launched, including in that pilot phase, there have been over 1.3 million contacts to the service, and those contacts include calls, chats, and texts.
What's the administration saying about why they're doing this?
There's two reasons the administration is saying that this line is being cut. The first is that 988 overall can handle the calls that the LGBTQ service would have received. And the second is the administration is saying that the service was fostering gender ideology beliefs among young people and trying to convince young people of gender ideologies. This is patently not what's happening. When somebody calls the line, they're calling a line because they're in crisis.
Just don't even give them... I really wish they would, like, the mainstream media and experts even would stop giving the right the point of there even being a quote-unquote gender ideology. The term gender ideology is a phrase made up by, I believe, Ben Shapiro. If not, it was Jordan Peterson. Because there was this time where they pushed the idea that trans and just trans people, I should say, and like gender fluid people and what have you, were just delusional. That it was just a mental illness, right? And when people started coming forward willing to debate that point and demonstrate the scientific consensus, the data that exists that does not seem to support the idea that transness is just mental illness or delusion, they then had to pivot to some new explanation for why there are so many trans people. And that new explanation was the idea that transness is just a virtue signal for being part of an ideology, gender ideology. The ideology that claims gender and sex aren't the same thing. Hint, hint, so does the entire consensus of the scientific community. All biologists and sociologists agree. Or the idea that gender can be changed, or that sex is not itself a binary, things that are also scientific consensus but do not align with the overly simplified worldview that conservatives rely on to convince people not to look into the information that is available to them to find out this whole trans thing is not as crazy as they might jump to assuming.
And the line is helping resolve that moment for the individual.
And what does the administration mean when they say gender ideology?
The administration means that somebody has a gender identity that differs from their sex assigned at birth. And they believe that there are only two sexes, which effectively erases trans people and trans identities. When in fact we know that transgender people are a part and fabric of the society.
And this is not the only thing the administration is doing to sort of pull back on access to services and help for the LGBTQ plus community in health. What else are they doing?
So the administration more broadly is seeking to challenge LGBTQ people's access to health care. One area that has received a significant...
The Supreme Court, by the way, just ruled that it is constitutional for states to ban gender-affirming care for trans people. So now it is up to the states whether or not trans-affirming care will be banned in their locality. The federal government has no A, desire, or B, ability now to force states to support the rights of trans people. There is going to be a long, arduous future legal battle, even in future administrations that are more sympathetic to the left, to get trans people back to the level of, on paper, legalized recognition and rights that they had even 4 or 5 years ago. Zan, earlier I got into an argument of an unhinged Trump supporter who thought doctors were gleefully cutting kids, and when I said, prove your source, he said, you do your own research after I said no kings. I mean, sounds about right. Damn, Zan's still streaming? I'm curious. Yeah, I started late, so it's not so much that I'm, like, still streaming. We've only been live for an hour and a half. It's not been that long. But, still. Let's hop back into it.
An amount of attention is youth access to gender-affirming care.
So with this going away at the 988 call, are there other services available to LGBTQ plus youth?
So LGBTQ youth can still call that 988 number, and they will get the same services that anybody else who is calling would get. But they may not get an operator who is especially trained to meet their needs or to understand their experiences. They can also call the services that the Trevor Project has and that some other projects have that provide support for issues beyond suicide ideation or suicidality.
Yeah, the Trevor Project is probably the best organization, or at least it's the most known organization to go to. I've known about them since I was like 13 years old because so many like big content creators online have like done charity streams for them and like done charity drives for the Trevor Project. They've been around for a long time. They've been pretty in the spotlight for a while. They seem pretty legit, and I don't believe they have any attachment to the U.S. government, as far as I'm aware. So I don't think the U.S. government can just shut down the Trevor Project, not unless they go full unconstitutional. And that, I think we're still a little while away from that. So while this hotline is gone, there are still others. I want to be very clear about that. The one I would recommend the most, just because I'm the most familiar with it and I trust it the most, would be the Trevor Project's line.
However, some of these projects, like the Trevor Project, receive funding for this service. And so to the extent that they're able to continue to provide the services that they can today,
they're going to lose
something to
funding.
watch moving forward.
And the funding isn't changing for 988 overall, right?
Right. So the funding overall for the line is going to maintain at $520 million.
Oh, wait. Dude, that graffiti goes hard.
All for the line.
People graffitied the sign, but it's stuff like, I love you, there is hope. That's so nice. There's something about that just makes me smile.
For the line is going to maintain at $520 million. The federal government is saying that the funds for the LGBTQ service have been exhausted for this year. And so another area that's important to watch is what Congress appropriates in the FY26 budget.
Lindsay Dawson of KFF, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is evil legislation from the Republicans shutting this down. And it's all meant to be a virtue signal for the fact that our government doesn't support wokeness or gender ideology anymore. And it's so upsetting to me how right now a lot of mainstream media is so scared of Donald Trump right now that they're using kid gloves. For those that don't know, the Associated Press was banned from the White House. Their coverage of Trump being too straightforward and honest got them banned from the White House by Donald Trump. Now every news outlet knows that their access to the White House for press conferences and announcements from the president and what have you will be limited, if not completely cut off, if they do not keep Trump happy. And so right now, as America sees a massive loss in civil liberties across the board, most of the media whose responsibility is to hold the government in check is so afraid of taking the hit to their finances, to their bottom line, because these are businesses at the end of the day, they're unwilling to speak truth to power anymore if it threatens said bottom line. I just want to live. Trust me, I know. There are still a lot of people out there who support you. If you're trans, gay, LGBT, anything like that, there are still a lot of people out there that support you. We are seeing an administration right now that used very popular wedge issue talking points and lies to get into power, and now they're applying their culture war nonsense that they, kind of used to help get elected. I don't think it's what got them in office, but it definitely helped them to reach a lot of big public figures and what have you. They are now using that prominence and that power that they've gained to impose their culture war view onto people and use that as future justification for why America does not like trans people. America doesn't want gender ideology. I promise you, they're going to make these arguments. They're going to try to use the newly manufactured illegality of trans people's medical treatment as an argument for why trans people shouldn't exist. We already know that they're going to do this. The Republicans have been pushing the idea that immigrants that have been getting deported, regardless of whether or not they were illegal, deserve it because Trump has changed the law, and the law says they should be deported, and the law is the law. The law is always right, I guess, these people believe. The fact is, they're just getting what they've always wanted. The most hateful people, the loudest people, are just getting what they want. And so they are going to do everything they can to whitewash this and defend this. If it's getting coverage, they're going to cover it up and refuse to let the story spread. And so it's our responsibility to talk about it and to make sure people know that the Republicans and Trump, his administration, are cracking down on the right to exist of trans and gay people. And this is not the America that we all, pledge allegiance to the flag for. This is not the America that I, as an American, love to joke about being the best country in the world, I love America. I do not like to see America in such a rough place. Not gonna lie, it feels like it gets harder and harder to exist. I will continue living out of pure spite. I hope you guys do. Keep in mind, nothing is more spiteful to the conservatives than to just live. To just continue living is the most spiteful middle finger you can send to Republicans and conservatives. They want you so demoralized you feel like there's no hope in going on anymore. Do not fall for it. Keep chugging. That is the best way to spite these people. I dislike the subject of gender ideology. I've read enough on it that it gives me giant headaches. So many contradictory claims and scientific evidence. Like the claims of gender ideology being a thing. All of this stuff makes my blood boil. I'm 20 and it feels like my life has been ripped away from me before I had a chance to even do anything successful. Honestly, KP, I turned 21 right at the start of the pandemic and felt the same way for a good few years. Like, damn, COVID really stole my my early adult life from me, huh? Like, all the bars are closed on my 21st birthday. That's great. So yeah, I totally get that feeling, KP, but trust me, life is long. You've got plenty to do, okay? You have not lost your chance at living a happy life. Continue living just to spite these people. Anyway, guys, if y'all enjoyed this segment, if you found it enjoyable, educational, or in any way just worth supporting, then please consider leaving a like and a comment if you're watching this as its own video or as a stream live right now. Every thumbs up and every comment you guys leave on my stuff forces YouTube to push my stuff in the algorithm to new people who haven't watched it before. It really does help a lot, so I appreciate it immensely. It means the world to me, and thank you guys for doing that. Of course, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications if you haven't already, so YouTube actually tells you when I go live and upload new videos, of course. And if you want to see more from me on other platforms, you should follow my social medias linked down below in the description, particularly my fan Discord, where I don't feel too great tonight, so I won't be hosting a watch party, but tomorrow I'll be hosting a watch party in there, and most weeks on Fridays, assuming Friday ends up being a day that I stream, after stream I host a gaming event, call-in stream, or watch party, or movie night in there, as well as announcing all my new uploads and streams just in case YouTube doesn't notify you. So you really should join the Discord if you haven't already. And of course, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.